All right, to all you freedom-loving boys and girls, welcome to Mission Critical Podcast. We're changing things up, but our intro is going to be pretty much the same. If you are watching or listening to this podcast, you are part of the resistance. And,
Yes.
We've often said, hey, we mean it, blah, blah, blah. But this is tonight's podcast is the start of a new way of doing business. Jeremy, myself, Paul, and many of our other regular guests have talked about. So we're not just messing around when we say you are the resistance. It's definitely time to go all in. There's no more pussyfooting around. You got to either get in the arena, get in the fight, or if you just sit back on your heels, if you sit on your hands, whatever happens next in our near future, you will have only yourself to blame. And when you look back in history and realize that you didn't do anything to speak out against these injustices, if you didn't do anything to speak out against the bullshit and the lies that are taking place, being perpetuated by both sides of the political aisle and globalism and all that kind of stuff. If that's you, hey, then this isn't the podcast for you. If you are ready to jump in with both feet and get it done, then welcome to the party. Welcome to Mission Critical Podcast. We are your hosts. I don't even know if we introduce ourselves as a host because everybody's now the host. Redbeard, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So
we've kind of elevated ourselves to this realm to where it's not just about us. It's equally as much about our guests because they have become so much more valued and are such regular contributors that at this point, I don't want to say they share the burden, but they definitely take part in as much as we do, I feel. And without them, I don't think this would be possible at this point.
And here we go. Let's try it our first time. Right. That was weak. We're going to work on that. We're trying to do a little Japanese anime manga thing here, but Redbeard is fighting it with all of his red beardiness. I think if we get it done, it'll actually be pretty funny. Hey, all right. But no, on a serious note. So, I'm Mark, over there, that's Redbeard. We've been kind of the hosts, for 30 some episodes, but we've had, Paul and we've got this group of people who've been regular guests and we're not joking. You are the resistance, you've got to get into the arena. You got to get into the fight. And if you're watching this, you're probably one of those people who is out there speaking out loud and, and resisting the bullshit that's, being force fed to us every day. But Jeremy and I were talking about this the other day, and it's not time to spice it up. It really is time to go all in. And that's what and tonight's the first step of that. So again, Paul and George and Stephen and David and Patrick, we've had this really good core group, and Blake actually has come around for a couple now too. And I know, so we've got this core group of people who are just people, just like the rest of us, watching. We all put our pants on the same way. So I guess we're doing a little bit of the housekeeping right now. But anyway, get prepared. That's what it's going to be a little bit more in the future. Matter of fact, Jeremy, I kind of took us off the rails there. We'll circle back to that, boys and girls. Here's how we're going to start this after our little intro. We did a little bit of housekeeping right there. We'll come back to housekeeping in a second. But after our intro, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to start this thing that's just going to, I don't know if we call it Fast and Furious, not named after that horrific program during the Obama era. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go do your research. But don't do it on Google or any of that bullshit because you won't get the truth. Go find a search engine. I personally use Brave. I know DuckDuckGo, but DuckDuckGo could be compromised. There's some people who've said a few things about them, but you can't use Google. I mean, Google's just going to tell you all the bullshit and the lies. And that's another thing part about, you got to be all in. And we'll get back to the some of the housekeeping here in a little bit, but we're going to start it off with this thing, Fast and Furious. So tonight's the Fast and Furious is going to be focused on something that's happened recently and, like social events or world politics or international politics or domestic as well. Tonight, it's going to be the Nashville shooters manifesto. All right. And on that note, let's bring it over to Redbeard. Sir, start us off. Nashville shooter manifesto. You got 5 minutes.
Yeah. So it's one of those things to where I think a lot of people kind of expected the general undertones of what was in that manifesto. There's quite a few things outlined, quite a few remarks had been kind of levied at skin color, in particular, white people, if I remember correctly, and several other things. I actually would encourage people to at least like thumb through it to see what it is. It's public information now, so you don't have to worry about anything there. But what I will say is, when it comes down to this, maybe I'm going to throw my my glow stick here, because to me, most of these events, if you will, these shooting events, they glow to me. Like, they glow really, really strong. And it's like, so many people have said, like, dude, like, we've known that these people are on the radar for so long, and yet it's like, oh, like, this person slipped through the cracks, even though we knew for a fact that, like, there was some serious things going on and there was really no intervention at all. But when you look at a history of a number of these people, what do they all have in common? Usually it's the use of medications, specifically like SSRIs, stuff that deals with depression and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different avenues of approach, but when you look at the manifesto, I would say overall that it's something that most people, when this happened, kind of were able to put their thumb on it. There wasn't a whole lot that was expressed, I guess, that a lot of people that was a shock to a lot of people. To me, it certainly wasn't shocking. The behavior wasn't shocking. Given that this individual had undergone medical procedures and many, many other things to or whatever to change their appearance, if you will, that has drastic consequences. And to expect that nothing is going to come from this in a realm in which your mental state is not going to be affected is kind of unbecoming of reality. So I don't know if Mark and Paul have anything to contribute to that, but that's kind of my piece there. You're muted, Mark.
So yeah, I was just kind of keeping my mic muted there, so I was writing stuff down. But thank you for your contribution. But remember, the way going forward, Paul, whoever the people are who's on the podcast, we all will have our own things. It's not contributing to, well, unless our comments contribute to. But if we want to make rebuttals, and I'm just going to say this to kind of get it going, and Paul can jump in, and you get a chance to to refute or respond to my criticism. And it's not even really a criticism, but if I throw like shade on what you're talking about, it's the fact that no one's going to talk about the drugs, Jeremy. I mean, I don't know if Paul wants, if this adds into your comment, we'll go that way. Jeremy, if you want to respond, because again, I'm not really necessarily picking on you or arguing with you. I'm just saying, I think you're wrong. I don't think anyone's going to give a fucking look into the drugs.
No, and I think that's a valid point, because in the end of the day, like, it's everything but the what is now known and what has a history of consistency is being shown, like, hey, like all of these people have been on some SSRI at some point in time in their life. For those of you that don't understand what SSRIs are, please go look that stuff up. It is super detrimental to your mental stability and your emotional stability, even though that these are medications that are allegedly, and I use allegedly in a very strong manner, to even you out. But the only thing SSRIs have managed to do is create more violent people with a callous disregard for anybody.
So, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I guess the place that I'm taking issue with your comment is, I just think no one's going to care. And so, to your point, Jeremy,
100%.
And I'm glad you brought it up. I wasn't going to necessarily bring it up, and I'm going to turn this over to Paul. I don't know if this is going to be part of Paul's response or if he wants to chime in at the end. But Jeremy, there was a guy, and you might even know the name. This was somebody who wrote this back in, like, the like 2010 or 2012, 2008, somewhere in that time. I don't remember exactly, but wrote about exactly what Jeremy's talking about.
Yep.
Like, hey, all of these mass shootings we're seeing, the common denominator is the drugs. It's the SSRIs. And then like, and this is like a really famous, really high-end doctor, whatever person. And then like a month later died under mysterious circumstances in a car crash. So to Jeremy's point, my only issue with Jeremy's comments is, there is something going on here with drugs and no one gives a fuck.
It's the elephant in the room nobody wants to talk about.
Yep. Paul, all right, you want to pick that apart, or you can take it in your own direction. You got 5 minutes of mayhem, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to contribute in a reply here. And I think the one thing we need to know with SSRIs is how many of the total population are actually on them. Right? If we don't know that, then maybe this is a small percentage. So that's one thing I'd like to know.
Yeah.
Do I believe that it has made some people more violent and especially more suicidal? It's in the warnings. It's on TV. You don't even have to take one. You read on TV, it could lead to suicide. So there's absolutely something going on there that's not right. So I believe what Jeremy said is definitely plausible. But I think we need to know the total population. How many people are really on these things? Because remember, how many people own guns? And only a few people use them in nefarious ways. So I know they're not necessarily comparable and it's kind of a parallel, but we want to be fair here and make sure that we're not jumping on something. At the same time, how many assassinations of, let's say, presidential figures occurred before SSRIs? And how many have occurred since then? None. I mean, there hasn't been any. Reagan, I don't. That's the last attempt that I know of. So, again, what was the cause of that behavior back then? Was it radicalism? I think it's all going to come back to radicalism. And to me, that the drugs don't help. Absolutely, they don't help. But so that's my rebuttal. I can move on to the Nashville shooter if you don't have any feedback from there, but and that's fine.
Hey, it's your Fast and Furious, so go ahead.
Yeah. So first things first, the media has been this way ever since I can remember. Okay, they have a narrative, they push that narrative, and in the past we would see that if we watched them. If we didn't watch them, we wouldn't know about it. Now they push that narrative, and social media, everyone's on social media. So they get feeds from everybody. And now everyone believes this stuff. So it's growing and growing and growing. And when they push issues, look, I don't care what an adult does with their body. If you want to do something to your body, you do it. That's fine. The kids, I got another issue with that. But so I don't judge that behavior. This was an adult that committed this crime. This was an adult that may have been on the radar of some law enforcement agency. This was an adult that was posting things or at least talking to people that she knew that this was going to happen. We didn't see all of the things that were in that manifesto. Right? I think it was 3 pages released, at least the last I heard. Maybe there's more now, but they admitted, the media eventually and law enforcement admitted that it is accurate. Those are 3 pages from the manifesto. Why were they hiding it before? It's the agenda. Again, they have their agenda. They have to push it and they will do it. And this makes no sense to me. I would like to know, I don't care if you're white, black, gay, whatever. If that's your motivation, I want to know what happened in that situation. What's wrong with that? I think I'm in the right there. I just want to know everything. The political parties are worthless. They absolutely have no idea what they're doing. They will not call this stuff out. Democrats will. They'll defend their points, but the Republicans are worthless. And I just want both parties to just come up and say, all right, you know what, we disagree on this, and this, and we might be partially communist now, and now we've moved to the centrist, if not left wing, and but we all agree that this was a targeted attack on Christians from someone that was anti-Christian, someone that went to that school that said some things that didn't make any sense. So what can we do? How can we fix this? How can we address this? It's not going to happen overnight. It may not happen in our lifetime. But what I would say, I know Steven Crowder was the guy that released this stuff. His company investigated this. He may not be a fan. I may not be a fan of his, but you know what? We need to listen to everyone and involve, just get involved. We don't have to say, all right, well, now I'm going to subscribe to Crowder's thing. We can say, all right, well, this guy released something good. Let's jump on board and defend him in this. Mm-hmm. And he's getting blocked and kicked off of this and that. I mean, he did that before anyway, but we need to defend that. We need the Republicans, because Democrats are not going to do that. They'll defend it if it's some kind of radical cause. We know that they'll stand by it. Republicans do not defend people like Crowder, who released something that I believe is I saw his thing, but as he said, they all could have done this. You didn't need me to do it, right? That's where I think we need to move forward. We need to start supporting alternative media, because our regular media is garbage.
Okay, there's your Fast and Furious right there. That's a great place to end it on. The media is garbage, and we need alt media. Yep. Jeremy, do you got any rebuttals or any areas where you got any areas where you think Paul screwed up or he's totally wrong? What do you got, sir?
So I just got two things. One actually is in support of Paul, because he brought up a point that I neglected myself. I don't know if it's due to fatigue from the day, but he did make the point pertaining to Christians in particular. Thank you for bringing that up, Paul, because that was a point that I overlooked.
Yeah.
And then another point that I also want to bring up as well was something pertaining to my commentary, which was I don't remember. I have to kind of correct myself here and stay ahead of the curve, but I actually don't remember, and maybe you guys do, if that individual did undergo medical procedures. I thought that was the case, but I don't recollect. So I want to catch myself before I misspeak.
It has not been disclosed.
Okay. I thought that was something that maybe it was something that was speculated, but I wanted to catch myself before we got too far down.
Yeah. And do you mean medical procedures? In other words, taking medications or
undergoing like hormone treatments and surgical procedures? I thought that might have been the case, but I wanted to catch myself before I got too far down, just to clarify that, because
I can't
that may have been a misspoken point on my end.
Well, let me grab that and then maybe kind of bring it into my Fast and the Furious response, and then kind of I think this will actually put a nice little bow on it. You guys just set that up nicely. So I've got my comment I'm going to make, but listening to what you just said, Jeremy, look, it's a basic question. And again, I'm not picking on Paul. I agree with Paul, so I'm just bringing this up again, not in disagreement, but Paul's absolutely right. Why aren't we asking these questions? Why don't we know the number of what was the number of politically motivated or whatever type of shootings or kidnappings before SSRIs, and then now how many of the things that have happened recently? How many of these people have been on SSRIs? And then to Jeremy's point, this female in the Nashville situation. I look, and just like you guys, I think I kind of know the answer, but now I just kind of I'm going to hesitate because I'm not 100% sure. I don't think there was any surgical procedures. I think it was all medical in nature. But what you guys are just both asking, and then see, I'm going to use that to segue into my thing. And Paul said this as well. So again, I'm not disagreeing with you guys. I agree, but I think I'm just going to add a little bit of like hot sauce on it. Why in the F? Why in the F? Where are the goddamn? Where's the media? If there was a media out there that was still worth its salt, they would be jumping up and down on their desks, demanding answers to these questions, asking these questions, doing the research that Paul just brought out. Look around you, America. For anybody who's watching and listening, the fact that this isn't happening, that silence is damning. That silence, this lack of action is absolutely damning, right? There's something obviously going on here, because how in the F aren't journalists? How are journalists not doing their job and saying, hang on a second, the last 6 people who've done these type of events have all been on these type of drugs. Maybe there's an issue going on here. You know, maybe there is a correlation. Maybe there's not. Maybe there isn't causation equals correlation. But that's a fair question any rational human being should be asking. And that's my question. Why has the press been silent on getting the silent treatment from the government? You can already see what my thought is there. Like the press, it's supposed to be that fifth column, right? You know, that fifth estate. It's supposed to keep all the other, you know, branches of government and all the other evil that comes with government. Doesn't mean people in government are evil, but there's a natural evil that's going to gravitate to these type of entities, government being one of them. Where are the press? The press are supposed to be the keepers of the flame. They're supposed to be, you know, shedding light because, you know, darkness, you know, that's what Sauron wants, right? Where are those people? So my thing is, look around. That silence is deafening. That silence is telling you everything. And then my final comment on, and to this point is, look, this was leaked. Steven Crowder got the scoop. Somehow he's got somebody doing, you know, investigative journalism because journalists aren't doing investigative journalism. So there you go right there. And then I can't even remember which one of it was, whether it was Redbeard or Paul. We need alt media. Screw mainstream media. I mean, like, matter of fact, you know, one of the things hopefully I'll bring up here later tonight is you got to get off Google. You got to screw all this other stuff. It is definitely time to go into alternative media and what does Bongino call it, guys? The other economic system that they're trying to create, you know, where you can get different web hosting and different computer or credit card processing companies.
Oh, sure.
They've got a name for it, but it's basically, you know, it's kind of like coming up with an alternative economy, right? Because, you know, PayPal will ban you or YouTube will ban you. And, you know, because if they don't like what you're saying. So there's people who are trying to, you know, espouse getting out there and getting away from these companies because these companies don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about me. They're intrinsically tied into obviously government entities that also don't give a shit about you, don't give a shit about me. They're intentionally denying you access to information that, to Paul's point, you have every right to ask these questions and you have every right to the answers to those questions. My final comment on the national thing is in the manifesto, the little bit that was leaked that we're able to see, Jeremy, right? So that's, you can see I'm getting fired up. Like, I'm really pissed off. Americans, how are we not just jumping up and down on our desk? Where are all the quote unquote Republicans saying, bullshit, release the whole goddamn manifesto? Because on one of those pages we did see, there was an entry, and this person clearly was anal, and well, not maybe anal, but had a good planning. They had a timeline, and one of those timeline entries was for a videotape. Where's that fucking videotape? Why aren't we seeing that videotape? You mean this person who was clearly that detailed in their attention to detail, their level of planning, and they had an entry in their journal saying, shoot my final video. Where's that video? And that also implies there are other videos. Where are those videos? Why aren't we seeing this stuff? Boys and girls, you got to go all in. Because if you think you're still living in a goddamn constitutional republic, I'm here to tell you, look around. Dude, this is the stuff of tin pot dictatorships. And then my final comment on this fascinating, because now I'm way beyond my 5 minutes, but it's the false fiction. It's the fantasy of a two-party system. And that's my last comment right there is we're all being led this fantasy. We're being fed this fantasy, this fiction. There's not a two-party system. Republicans, they're the same as the Democrats. They don't give a shit about you or me or any of us or what our lives are going to be like or, you know, what it is like to be us right now. Look around you. They're lying to you left and right. And they give you little tidbits every now and then so you think you're still free. The things that we have an absolute right to hear and to see and to witness, to Paul's point, are being withheld from us. Under what grounds? What guys? What right? What law?
Yeah.
All right, you guys can tear me apart if you want. That's my little intro right there. I know I went a little bit long. I apologize. You can see that was I was building up.
I just want to say real quick to you, Mark. I kind of feel like the reason they don't put out the whole manifesto is for a similar reason as to why Epstein's list hasn't been leaked, because it looks very bad on a lot of people, especially when those people are more than likely the same people who've presided over numerous very high profile, very centered on shootings. There's a culpability in there and like, oh, we should have done something about it, but we're either invested, somehow involved, or we are just downright negligent in the fact that we didn't do anything about it. And I think that manifesto, as well as, I mean, dude, if we're going to talk about manifestos, look at all of the other manifestos that have been put out. Like, I feel like we've only gotten small tidbits of the different manifestos from other shooters. So it's like we
That's
haven't
right.
even, you know, it's like,
Hey, what do
the
we
end
know
of the
about
day-
Las Vegas? Hey, so, okay, I already
Yeah.
love the direction. So we're going to kind of, this is going to be a little bit choppy here tonight's episode, boys and girls, but because we're still figuring out how we're going to do this. But you just saw right there. Now, Jeremy's taking us down, not a rabbit hole, but he's taking us down where we're going to let the conversations go in the future. But we're going to start it off with the exception. I did get a little worked up. I got a little hotter in the collar. I apologize, but you can see that, like, to me, it's almost too late because it's happening all around us, and there's no one who's getting up and saying anything or raising a stink. And there's definitely no Dan Crenshaws out there, you know, bitching and complaining about this stuff. So again, we're pretty screwed when it comes to this, right? Because it's the false, it's the fantasy that there's actually two parts. Now we can get into that in a second, but so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start off with like a little fast and furious, where we're gonna pick a subject. Hopefully it's controversial, and you know, let whoever's here with us give their comments, their thoughts, and everybody will know it ahead of time. This is where we're going to start getting a little bit scripted. They'll know the subject ahead of time. I don't know what Jeremy's going to say, and he doesn't know what Paul's going to say, and vice versa. But then if there's a, you know, hey, you know, I don't really 100% agree with you, there'll be a little bit of that back and forth, and that'll be our current events.
Yep.
And then now Jeremy just already started taking us in, and we're going to let this go in a natural direction. But I think we're going to do a little housekeeping before we go into that. So we'll start off with that fast and furious, a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll go into the meat and potatoes of the rest of the podcast. Now, Jeremy, if you're willing to do that, we're at 26 minutes.
Yep.
You want to maybe just do a little housekeeping, but then let's come back to what you were saying, because I know Paul's going to have something to add to that too. And we might as well just keep going in that direction for tonight. Don't you think, guys?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
I
know, Jeremy, I know you've got something else you want to bring up, and I want to bring up a little something on Israel too. Paul, do you have anything special planned?
I'm in for all discussions. I have planned
Well, Jeremy, you weren't able to see this from Paul and I earlier, but I like what Paul sent me on that little red team thing. So maybe, Paul, we end it as a little precursor to what's going to come in the future, because we should do something like that as a class. So why don't we use that slide, that opportunity, and we bring that up at the end as maybe something we're going to do going forward.
Yep.
So Redbeard, if everybody's cool with that, then let's bring it over to you. Why don't you kind of start some housekeeping, and then let's get into, let's segue into the rest of the conversation.
Yeah. So I just, my first, I guess, thing is just going to be to kind of hit on the point that you made earlier, which is introducing what the actual subject for this evening is, which is you got to be all in, right? Like it's not this realm of maybe this or maybe that. Like you have to become aware of where you need to be, and for each person that may be different, but in the end of the day, like, we have to become invested in what's going on. You have to, like, you can't afford to not be invested to some degree in some way, in what brings us to that. And that's where the discussion is going to be. It's like, what has brought us to this idea of being all in? And I think that's going to be different for each person. Mark, it's a little bit different for you. Paul, it's a little bit different for you. It's a little bit different for me. And we may have some unique similarities, but overall, I think that's a good kind of glossing over of what tonight is going to be. And this is, like Mark said, this is how we're going to try and structure everything. So just bear with us as we go through this in the next couple of weeks, because it's going to take a little getting used to.
Well, and then, I don't know if Paul's willing to chime in, but so Jeremy, you just kind of introduced tonight's topic, but I actually, in my mind, I'm seeing the normal, just quick intro, and then going right into the Fast and the Furious stuff. And then once that's done, it comes over to you. And then you're like, all right, well, that was Fast and Furious. Now let's talk about what tonight's podcast can be. I kind of think that would be a good way. We don't necessarily have to get the main subject all the way up front. Let's just get it You know, honestly, let's just make everybody jump in with both feet and just like right off the bat, just get into, yeah, there it is. Welcome to the party. The water's warm. Let's go. Boom. And then we can take a breath a little couple minutes later and say, all right, tonight, you know, the rest of the night, tonight's podcast is going to be talking about what does it mean to you as a person when you take a step back and reflect on it? Are you willing to go all in? What does that even mean to you? You're like, you know, and boys and girls, seriously, I didn't know Jeremy was going to go in that direction. But before we hit record, that actually came up in conversation. Like, you know, what does that even mean? I mean, what it means for me is different for Paul, is different for Redbeard, is different for you, right? I would think. I mean, Paul, does that sound about true? I mean, you're the one who brought that up.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, I can elaborate if you'd like. So at this point, you know, why am I all in? I know in the past we've had things where I say, well, I've been white pilled and I still have hope and this, that, and the other thing. It doesn't mean I'm still not white pilled, but I'm all in because I'm seeing failures left and right across everybody that supports us. So what does it mean for me to be all in? It doesn't mean crazy. It means pay the heck attention to what's going on. Pay attention, especially to your local government. You don't have a lot of say in the feds and any of that kind of stuff. However, you cannot ignore that. You need to speak up. Don't show up at some government site and protest because they don't like people like us. Okay. People that don't agree with the far left agenda. You cannot participate in those type of events. I'm sorry. I know people say, well, you got to do it. You got to do it. We have people that have been in jail for multiple years that just walked out, you know, that walked in an area at a certain time. We've had people that killed people, that took over cities, that supported the left agenda, that were never tried. They were let out of jail. They may have been arrested, but they were never put in jail. Okay, maybe some were, but the majority were not.
Hey,
they were bombing things. I mean,
I hate to say it. This could have been the current events. Look what just happened last week with the whole, like, you know, to the fucking, you know, from the river to the sea crowd, you know, at the White House. I mean, have you heard anything? Have they been labeled domestic terrorists? Have they been labeled terrorists at all? Are they going to like spend the next 6 years in jail or 30 months in jail? Are they being rounded up right now? Are they being identified by the FBI? Are they being called out as insurgents by the media? And they sure as hell did the same. They did a lot worse than the January 6th people did. So again, the hypocrisy. So I'm sorry. I'm just getting pretty fed up with the hypocrisy. So
if I can add real quick, Mark,
or hopefully you can, you know, mellow it out. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know that it is going to mellow out because it's also going to a point that Paul made, which is I personally had met people that were indefinitely detained by the federal government due to a certain event several years ago. Mark knows that I had gone down to the Bundy Ranch at post that's the initial situation that took place there. And I had talked to people that were given no form of a fair trial, people that were held indefinitely without charges, people that were abused in the prison system, people, you know, the list goes on. And, you know, very much to what Paul said, like I sat and I got to talk to these people. And then you look at, you know, some of these other individuals that have gone through towns that have done all of these different things, you know, and they can just walk out a couple hours later from a police precinct. And, you know, and the thing of it is like, look,
hey, before you get too far afield and talking about these people walking away, you know, who've obviously committed crimes, yet they're, you know, there's, again, it's obviously, we live in a two-tiered system of justice. That, you know, there's justice for those people and there's, you know, rules for thee, not for me. But Jeremy, I want you to kind of come back a second because have you and Paul, have you guys seen the reports? I mean, there's already been reports, there's been multiple reports, but again, look at the media. You would think the media and the ACLU and other organizations would have been all over this. there's tons of reports about how the January 6th protesters who are in jail are being both, psychologically and physically tortured. There was another one that just came out yesterday, I think, talking again about the conditions. And where are all the civil liberties and the traditional liberals? So again, I used to consider myself a traditional liberal. I mean, I want lots of personal freedoms, and I want the government to not be taking tons of my taxes. Really just a standing military, law enforcement, education, the roads, and then get the F out of my life.
Right.
Where are all those people anymore? They're not here, guys. I mean, and Jeremy, I'm sorry, but I didn't want you talking too much about how one side is being coddled. I want you to kind of come back to another side is still rotting in jail. Did you guys hear any of this stuff? And is that true, or is it being?
And so I'll tell you, like, when I had the opportunity to sit down with some of these people that were involved, that were very lately detained, mind you. Some of these people waited a very long time before they were actually detained. And then they were detained without charges. That is speaking of some of the people from the Bundy Ranch incident. And there is so much, like, we had our wake-up call with that situation. We had our wake-up call when the federal government decided they wanted to murder Lavoy Finicum on the highway. We had our wake-up call during these events. And look, in the end of the day, you don't have to agree with them. But what is undeniable is they will utilize every form of power they possibly can to absolutely destroy you in every way possible. And that is notwithstanding the fact that they will detain you indefinitely with no charges, which is a violation of your rights. They will deny you a speedy trial, which is also a violation of your rights, and many other abuses, both physical, mentally, and emotionally. Look, the fact that this is happening and we didn't figure this out back when it was happening the first time is unbecoming of who we are as a country. Like, the signs were there, and now we have people that are still getting arrested over January 6th, whether you like the person or not. Like, I'll just make this argument. There was, I don't remember exactly who it was that said it, but if we are not willing to stand up for the rights of our enemies, then, we're kind of screwed. Like, if somebody is legitimately arrested due to criminal behavior, okay, yeah, like that makes sense. But in the end of the day, like, there's such a back and forth, like, oh, these people don't get rights, but these people do get rights. But then it's like the way that they're detained is not the same way that these people are detained. Like, there's just this double-edged sword. And Mark, I don't know if this is kind of making sense to you and Paul, but look, like, you would have had to have talked to the people, in my opinion, that were detained over the Bundy Ranch fiasco to actually understand how much of a double standard there is. Like, and like I said, the writing's on the wall.
So I'm going to turn this over to Paul, but I'm just going to, again, I'm a little hot under the collar here tonight, so I'm going to kind of try to take it easy and take a step back. But, like, I love everything you just said, not because, I agree, not because it's like, oh, Jeremy's my own little echo chamber. It's because what Jeremy just said at some level has to do with personal freedoms. And what really resonated with me is I don't have to like you. You could be my enemy. So I'm just going to bring it back full swing to the, from the river to the sea, motherfuckers. Like, hey, dude, you don't fucking rape women. You don't kill non-combatants. You don't kill women and children. You don't do that stuff. And it's the same thing. Like, if I'm a law enforcement officer, I've got to follow the laws. I've got to work harder. Yeah, the bad guys, it's advantage bad guys. But you know what? That is the time immemorial struggle between good versus evil. So what I really liked about what you just said, Jeremy, is it's that acknowledgement. It's like, yeah, even the people I disagree with, even with my enemies, they still have rights. They're still I still have to treat them
Yep.
a certain way, like, so I really like that again. So again, not just saying, like, oh, echo chamber, but
Yeah.
no, because it's common sense, right? And it shows
Yeah.
you're a good person. And that's why we're doing this stuff together, right?
Mhm.
Because and if somebody doesn't get that, well, then you can just piss off. Like if you really think you should, they were my enemy and I should mistreat them. Hey, look, so here, if you want to take it out of context, what I just said about Israel and what's going on right now in Gaza. Look, you come into my community and you rape people, you butcher people, you decapitate people, you kill people who are, surrendering, you take civilians hostage. And then I come into your town and I start blowing the shit up out of stuff. All right, you can sit there and this is where I'm just going with it. I love everybody saying, well, it needs to be proportional. So the Israelis should go and rape and murder and decapitate. And, is that what you're saying? Because that would be proportional. I don't think you even understand what that word means, right? But so to Jeremy's point, on one hand, I mean, like Israel has a right. Whatever happens now, in my humble opinion, I hate to say it, evil did that, right? And Israel's biggest challenge right now is not to fall victim to the dark side, and not to use Sauron's ring against him. But they've got every right to start blowing the shit and breaking all the toys. I mean, in my opinion. So, all right, I'll shut up on that. But I like what you said, Jeremy, for that reason right there. Paul, let's come over to you. You can say I'm an idiot if you want. What do you got?
No, I think what I want to do is I want to take it in reverse. So I'm going to address what you just said. So proportional when it comes to war makes no sense. That's complete BS. I want to leave it for that point. Second, the media is now pushing that Israel is killing children and women. Did they know? Do they not know what happened originally? Did they not acknowledge that? Why are they pushing that issue? It goes back to that darn agenda that they're pushing where they don't support Israel. And, no matter what we say, no matter what they do, they're getting blamed for something that terrorists went in and did. Those same terrorists put women and children in places where they have munitions and that kind of stuff so that Israel does bomb them. We know they don't lie about that kind of stuff. They show it. So, that part is
I just got to throw this out. Just in case there's somebody who's listening to this conversation and right now is saying, Paul's full of shit or Mark and Redbeard are full of shit. Dude, the leader of Hamas just came out yesterday and just said and admitted everything you just said. They're like, yeah, we don't really care about the citizens. That is not our purpose. We want this, we want that, so we can have it. We don't care about these other things. And some people are starting to wake up to that. So I'm just glad you said it. But before anyone starts trying to say, oh, Paul's just no, you didn't hear what the fuck he said. Yeah,
I'm a bad guy now.
Your own research.
At no point did I say, okay, I'll leave it at that.
I'm just saying you're right. I mean, I know some people say you guys just keep saying each other's right, but when somebody's right, they're right. I mean, I don't know what else to say there.
So I have one minor point to make and then one major point. And they're all related to what Jeremy said. January 6th. Where is MTG? She went in there, took videos, said she was going to go in there and help them. Now, she's busy fighting over who's going to be speaker and this kind of stuff. This is where the Republican, even the people that I might agree with in certain situations, embarrasses herself publicly. And there's the other one that really embarrasses herself. But, they come out and they say this stuff, but they don't do anything about it. They never did anything about that. So I just want to say that. So the Republicans, they own January 6th, meaning that the reason people are still behind bars without trials or that they got railroaded in trials, it's all because of, the Republican parties didn't defend them. And everybody's afraid of running away from it. I don't know. The whole thing's a joke. It's nothing compared to what happened elsewhere. But okay, so the main point, the real BLM. There is a BLM that is misguided, grifted by a few people that had a different agenda that had nothing to do with race and got rich off of it. We'll leave it at that. The big, major BLM that is a problem is the BLM involved in the Bundy Ranch. What is their goal? It's land confiscation. They're taking land away from American citizens. The federal government. I mean, look,
Biggest Ponzi scheme in the world.
We could debate on whether or not, even national parks. I'll be like, all right, national parks. I get it. There's some nice things there. Maybe we need to do something there. I'm against it personally because I don't think the federal government should have any land. But okay, I get that part. But now they're starting to buy up land. What are they doing with that land? Well, they're in bed with China, and China's buying land. They'll sell the land to China. I mean, again, this is just opinion at this point. Once I get to the China part, it's opinion. But no, our federal government owns land, and then they sell land to China. The BLM, that part, Bureau of Land Management, is the real evil BLM. The other one, they're just misguided. Mark, you're muted. If I said,
I have to start muting myself as we're doing this because you guys are making me laugh. Like Paul was I was in the background. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Like, but you're absolutely right. And where I love where some of these conversations go is because it should help everybody because it helps me. It helps remind me. And again, I think this is done by design. Because if the three of us, if this is what we got paid to do, well, we'd have huge whiteboards and we'd be tracking. We'd have tracking boards everywhere. Okay, well, how's this program going? How's this program going? What of our taskers or our to-do lists and all this. But as me and you, the average person, we can't keep up with all this stuff. Paul just brought up a whole nother subject that just begs the question of what the fuck is really going on in our world, in our constitutional, quote unquote, constitutional republic around us. Land is being bought up by Chinese companies, by other companies, things that you would have thought a Republican, would have never supported is being supported left and right by Republicans. Again, going my comment, and I don't think we can ever do these justice. This is why in the past, I think our podcasts have been 3-4 hours long is because how do you even address that? I mean, like, again, I think it's the fiction or the fantasy that you live in a two-party constitutional republic. We don't. Look at how many Republicans just voted with Democrats. So in starting in 2025. Now, I don't know where this will go in the appeals process or whatever, but the bill was shot down because 20 plus Republicans voted with the Democrats. So every vehicle produced after 2025 will now have a kill switch in it. That's not that's not a conspiracy theory. That's not me making shit up. Go do your own research. That bill was just voted on. It was just voted on, and Republicans voted in favor of it.
And it's based on driving performance, by the way.
Yeah, well, of course, it's always called stuff like that, right? So I don't want to get into the weeds of that, but as a podcast, as we're going forward to what Paul just said, it's the same. Look at social media. Where are the supposed Republicans who believe in the First Amendment? Where are the supposed Republicans who believe in the Second Amendment? Where are where are the Democrats for that matter? I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. You're supposed to believe in these things. Dude, we're being fed a big fat fiction that we live in a two-party system. And I'm here to tell you, if you think Donald Trump is going to be the savior, imagine what it's going to be like if Donald Trump is elected. If they don't put him in jail, I mean, they're like, so there it is right there. Matter of fact, I'm going to shut up on this point. I don't care if you like Trump or dislike Trump. I don't care if you want to vote or you support him or you dislike and want to vote against him. What is happening against a presidential candidate? Just look at who our presidential candidates even are. You got to be multimillionaires. You got to know everybody rubs elbows. They all know the same people. It's the same group of people. They just today I'm going to put an R by my name and tomorrow I'm going to put a D by my name, D for douchebag maybe. But like, you think Donald Trump, do you think they're going to even let him make it to the 2024 elections? Do you think they're going to let us make it to the 24 elections? And then if by some miracle, we as a nation make it there, and if some miracle Trump survives as a person and gets elected, which he's clearly going to kick Joe Biden's ass, like he clearly kicked Joe Biden's ass in the last election. All right. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. We all know it's fucking bullshit. Right. So, but what do you think is going to happen if Trump makes it into office? If you support Trump, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think suddenly it's going to be unicorns and rainbows? Shit, no. Mitch McConnell's, Dan Crenshaw's, Nancy Pelosi's, You know, none of these people are going to do, they don't give a shit about me and you. They don't give a shit about this country. So you got to wake the F up and you got to get all in. You still got to get out and vote. We got to vote these people out of office. We've got to speak up. We've got to stand up. If you want your vehicle, your 2026 new vehicle to have a kill switch so some bureaucrat can decide that you've driven too much that month and they can just turn your vehicle off. If that's the utopian, you know, cyberpunk or steampunk world you want to live in, you do you. I'm done though. I'm going all in on the opposite direction. All right, boys. That was my little, I see Jeremy, I got at least a little smile out of Jeremy. All right. I kind of let's try to see if we wrap this up in an hour. So who wants to chime in, rebut, tell me I'm stupid?
I have one thing real quick, and then Jeremy, please go. If you think we're going to get a legitimate election, look at Pennsylvania in the election that happened this week. They had ballots, electronic ballots. The machines were switching yes to no. Okay, all of that stuff that we thought could have happened in 2020 can actually happen. It did happen in Pennsylvania.
Well, and I didn't even want to get into elections, but hang on. But Rona's got to go. Rona's a Democrat.
Rona's got to go. But we have machines that are changing votes.
We should have cleaned. Look, the reality is we should have cleaned house in those 4 states, right? You know, Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, and yeah. But no, and instead we lost. How did we lose? Like, really? And it like used the Dan Bongino thing. No, I've been saying it for a long time, but I say it differently. I say, how many times do you need Mike Tyson to punch you in the face? Bongino says, you know, it's not painful enough. You know, same comment. I guess it's not painful enough. We're going to vote in that same Behar or Bashar, or whatever his name is in Kentucky, or I just don't even understand it. Like, is this what we're doing, people? Youngkin, you know, and then that guy from, and then the Republican loses in Kentucky.
Don't forget about Fetterman.
Oh, geez.
Pennsylvania again.
All right, let's bring it.
Pennsylvania is a mess.
Yep. So I kind of sidetracked this. Let's come back to you. But that's a great example because that just happened yesterday. And it's just an embarrassment. Like, you know, the Republicans, really? Seriously? Come on. They're not Republicans. So I'm just because we're talking politics there a little bit, but all right, Paul, continue, sir, or respond as you see fit.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that point about we can say we want to vote all we want. Look, ultimately, I believe we need to go back to paper ballots. It's never going to happen. We need to go same day voting, with the exception of absentee ballots. I voted absentee ballot once in my life because I couldn't be there at the time, but I submitted it ahead of time. We're never getting back there. Never. So we're going to have to deal with mail-in ballots, mail-in voting, and electronic ballots. I mean, who's going to repeal that?
Well, so the sad thing is, though, you and I would repeal it if we were given a chance. If there was a national referendum on it, we would repeal it. I do think the American people would, but the ability for theft and for election fraud is too great, and there's too many politicians. There's too much power involved, and you're absolutely right. They're never going to give it up now. You know, some wise man once said, long ago, the moment you give the government any little bit of whatever it is, you're never getting that back. And Jeremy, I'm going to bring that over to you because I'm kind of setting you up with a softball, but don't you think that's what's happened? Paul's absolutely right. There's only one way to vote, and that's in person with
28th Amendment. Yep. It's got to be the 28th Amendment.
Redbeard.
Well, so it's so what's interesting is the 10th Amendments that are actually Michael Bolden actually talks about this quite a bit. Like, there's never been a point in time where government was granted a temporary measure or temporary allotment of power in which they've ever yielded that power later down the road. We see such a thing like with the Patriot Act. We see it in many, many other situations, obviously, but they're never going to relinquish the more power that they've been given or allotted, or, there is no such thing as temporary with government. It doesn't even matter whether it's our government or somebody else's government. Government is going to do what government is going to do when they have no checks and balances to hinder their ability to permanently hold newly attained power. People, and I've said this numerous times, people have this obsession with saying that, like, well, the Constitution failed. No, a piece of paper cannot fail itself. Just like a government does not stay in check by sitting idly by and doing nothing to remind them of where their power and their authority ends and what they're delegated to do. Power is derived from the consent of the governed. It's derived from the people itself. Thus, the people delegate power to the states. The states are used to delegate power to the federal government. This is the power structure. The people withhold the majority of the power. We delegate the power to the state then to the Fed. We need to understand this dynamic in order for us to even do anything. And unfortunately, like my two cohorts have wonderfully mentioned, look, it's not going to be something that is just going to fix itself. The idea of in-person voting, especially as it pertains to like on paper, I agree with Paul. Like, this is just it's not really going to get much better. We are too far down the road to where we have allowed so much to take place, not just as it concerns to voting, but for so many different things that we don't want to take responsibility for, because in the end of the day, it's not good. We don't want to have to face the responsibility that we have to bear because it's difficult. But life is difficult. So we either are going to do something about it or we're not going to do something about it. But as people of this, and I'll say it this way, as people of the many states, because that's really what it is, the people of the many states within a federation or a country, a larger country as it is, look, we've got to figure out what we're going to do. And until we can figure that out, nothing's going to change, whether it be for good or ill.
Yeah, I want to try on that note. Let's figure it out. What are we going to do? I kind of want to use, like, again, getting this ready for the future. This would have been fast and I would have had it done. I'm going to bring us all three of us into that different screen. Let's try to do a little Japanese anime. And on Jeremy's note, what are we going to do? So I think our battle cry here is let's roll, right? Let's just do a let's roll. All right, you guys, let's see if we can pull this off Japanese anime style. You guys ready?
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's roll. That's our fighting words right here. Oh, I like Paul. All right, I'm going to do Paul's thing. I'm just going to raise my glass like Paul, but let's do a let's roll. All right, Jeremy, you do fists. Jeremy, because no one wants to drink. No one wants to cheers your Gatorade, dude. There you go. Good fists. All right, you guys ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Let's roll. You guys, we got to do some work. That was horrible. You all got to say it. You all, anyway, I'm going to send you some clips of some good
picture cut down. So I'm doing this. And
I'm going to send you some clips where they do that in anime, where they bring everybody into these close-up views, and then everybody has their little fight pose, and they're like, let's go. And they have the little.
Yeah.
See, no, that was good right there. Where was that motivation? Where was that energy?
I like my shitty American Saturday morning cartoons. So if we could do some if we could do some drugged out Ren and Stimpy, I might be into it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not know you were a connoisseur. Oh, we will have to talk about this off. Dude, I love me some Ren and Stimpy. That's actually pretty funny.
I am purely convinced that the man and or woman who created Ren and Stimpy had to have been on drugs. And to think that was a cartoon that was originally like shown to kids. And I remember growing up, not to sidetrack, but growing up, I remember watching that cartoon and I'm just like, what am I even watching? Freaking an arm gets ripped off or an eyeball gets pulled out. I'm like, what is going on here?
No, there was plenty of times I had the same. I'm like, what am I watching? What the
Even
fuck
as an
is this?
adult, it's perplexing. It's
No,
like I
that's
don't
what
even
makes it good.
understand what's going on here.
Hey, just to throw it in there, and then because I'm actually starting it all over again too, because I think season 7 is coming out soon. Rick and Morty, so that's another potential drug. You gotta. It's a different show if you're a little drunk watching it, than normal. Definitely don't let your kids watch it. All right, hey, but here on a serious note, I'm just gonna kind of sticking to point. We got sidetracked there a little bit. I try to do the little anime, let's go, let's fight. But we're at an hour. Let's wrap this up because again, boys and girls, our other goal is, and we just did a 4-hour podcast 2 weeks ago. Jeremy's the same. I'm sure Paul's the same. Most of the time we don't go back and, watch it because we were a part of it, right? I don't need to go back and watch what I did, but that one was so long. I went back and watched, and I thought it was one of our best podcasts, but it is 4 hours long. So part of our going forward in the future, we're going to do these on Thursday night, but we're going to probably shoot part 1 and part 2. So for all of us, especially for me, Thursday night becomes like my one of my nights off that I get. And then I usually try to take Friday morning off. And then I'm back at work for the rest of the week. So it's kind of a fun evening, and I'm a loser, and this is way more fun than going to a bar. But what we're going to end up doing is we'll do like an hour to, between 60 and 90 minutes. That'll be part 1. Then behind scenes, we all take a break, go to the bathroom, eat some food or whatever. And then we come back and then we'll shoot part 2. And it might be me, Paul, and Steven in part 1. And then in part 2, it might be me, Redbeard, and Steven and Dave or something like that. So it's going to change. And this, we think gives everybody a chance to kind of come in at times that works in their schedule. So on that note, so that's a little bit more of the, inside baseball and a little bit of the housekeeping. That's what it's going to look like going forward. So I actually think, with your guys' permission, I'm done talking. I think I've expressed enough how pissed off I am and how all in I am. And I think actions obviously speak louder than words. And then going forward, I think there's got to be more of exactly this. And I'm doing that on my personal business side. I'm doing it on my personal side. And I want to do that on Mission Critical Podcast. I've got a million more things to add, fellas, but I'm not going to add anything more tonight. We're at an hour. Jeremy, with your permission, why don't we come over to Paul for Paul 5-10 minutes, and then come over to you 5-10 minutes closing, and then I don't know if we didn't even talk about if we're going to change our outro or not, but or do you want to start off with a little comment? Then do you want to start off with a comment? We go to Paul and then come back to you for final comment and an outro. Let's do it that way.
Sure. Yeah. Right, we'll do that. My only I've just 2 things here real quick. So the first thing is I also want to kind of make it clear to the listeners, my experience, and I hate the fact that I have to put a disclaimer out there, but I'm also doing this out of respect for, the people that I interacted with as it pertains to the Bundy Ranch, but also to people that I know how people are. They're very quick to draw conclusions. I had interactions with several people, both that had at the time been currently detained. I had talked to them in a certain facility, which anybody who's followed the timeline probably has an idea of where some of those detention facilities were, but outside as well for a couple of years, and some more than others. But I want to really emphasize that other friends of mine as well, they've had far more interaction than I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and talk to the right people. So I don't want people to take that particular experience, it's a valuable personal experience that I got to have, but I will never use that as a way to validate necessarily something that people should be researching anyways, if that makes any sense. So I just wanted to put that out there. That's just my personal experience. There's people that have had more interaction I just happen to be in the right place, the right time, know the right people. So my second thing, oh, you're muted, Mark.
Sorry. Hey, before you go on to part two, though, your second point, it's just to your credit in part one. Yeah, dude, we've been saying this since the very first podcast, and even before that. Do your own research. Yeah. Jeremy's speaking about his personal experience. I can speak on my personal experiences. Paul can do the same thing, but that doesn't make it right. You got to go and do your own research, right, and figure it out for yourself. So I like how you said that. Yeah. So
yeah, and I just and I know that some people like there is this thing of like, oh, like you're using this as a way to like like I was there. Like I honestly like I went because it was the right thing to do, because I wanted to get the actual story from the actual people. And the people that I did talk to gave me their personal story and their personal experience from having been there, like during the standoff. So like it's more of putting them out, explaining like this is what it was important for.
I'm timing you out simply because now. So again, here's where some people could say we're disagreeing, or maybe we just have a slightly different perspective.
Yeah.
This kind of goes into the, the whole, like, if I wasn't in the military, I can't talk about guns, or I can't I can't wear body armor and all that bullshit. No, Jeremy, I love it when people say, hey, you were there, but you can't talk about it. Like, what do you mean I can't talk about it? I was fucking there. And you're not a bad person if you do talk about it, because you were there. Now, there are some people who use like, hey, I was there. And then, but we all know this as human beings. We can see the difference. If somebody's using that I was there thing and is using it, and that's all they ever reference, and then they're like, I was there, so you can't, your points are illegitimate or whatever. You can see through that bullshit. That's not what you're doing, and you've got every right to say it. And if somebody's gonna try to criticize and see, this is my part of my all in, because we see this happening all around us. Quote unquote conservatives attacking conservatives and like, oh, you held your handgun wrong. Like, dude, shut the F up, man.
Well, and the biggest,
but before you respond, but is that kind of making sense? Because I'm sick of that shit too. You were there, Jeremy. I wasn't. I can have my own personal feelings. I could do all the research in the world, but the one thing I will never have is I wasn't, and you're a different individual than me. How you experienced that moment, being there wherever you were, whether it was in the middle of things, at the forefront, or the periphery, it doesn't matter. I could have been there right next to you for all, and I still would have experienced it potentially differently than you, because I'm a different freaking human being than you. So I'm tired of hearing our side attacking our side over dick measuring contest bullshit.
Well, and that's the biggest thing that I guess that I'm trying to convey, which is like, I spoke to people that were actually there. So I don't want people, that's the biggest thing, is like, and I'm the only reason I say this is because I know that there are people out there. I still know people that were and still are involved with that family. So I don't want there to be any misconstrued notions, right? Like, I wasn't there the day that the time that the standoff was there. I simply had spoken to people after the fact. That's what I'm trying to say. My second point is
hang on, before you go a second, Paul, comment on that. Any response, anything to add to it from your point of perspective or wisdom?
Along those lines, but and with both of what you have said, I wasn't in the military, but every one of us watching this or participating in this, we looking at our background right behind us right now, we all get chills there, and we have the utmost respect for those that did that. And just because I didn't serve doesn't mean my ancestors didn't. They did. But I look at that picture and damn it gives me chills. And I'm proud of that generation. They did way more than I ever did, and I could never live up to that. And I always have respect for that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there. I'm not part of the military, but I still feel that way. Right.
All right, I'm just going to do this real quickly. People can see that's a picture on top of an overlay, but it's a picture of Normandy and D-Day. So that's what Paul's kind of referencing right there. So Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Redbeard, you had point number
Yeah.
2. Let's bring it back.
Yeah, I just and Mark, you know where this is going to go.
I'm sorry. I just got to slow you down one more second because I didn't anticipate this. I didn't see this coming, but maybe I subconsciously chose that picture. So for everybody, a little bit inside baseball. I'm starting to. I'm not very good at using the software, but Jeremy and I are messing around with it. And earlier tonight, Paul and I were messing around with it, and I'm starting to see some things that I can do with the software that I didn't know I could do. And so anyway, we've got this picture of D-Day because on a personal note, on my bucket list, it was going to D-Day during D-Day celebrations. And I was able to do that. Unfortunately, because of war zone type of things, I was able to take leave en route one time and it just worked out perfectly. And I was able to go to France for D-Day celebrations on an anniversary. And I'm here to tell you, I have no idea how those men did that. Back, I don't know how they did it. And I was just coming back from a war zone, and I'm just like, how in the fuck did these guys do this? It's unbelievable what the men of the West did back then, and it's I don't even know. I can't even put it in words. But Veterans Day. Now, Veterans Day isn't Memorial Day, so another little stupid pet peeve. But here's the all in. I'm just going to start being more honest. This weekend is about people who've served in the military, right? Not those who've died in foreign wars. That's Memorial Day. You can still pay homage, right? Because people who died in foreign wars are usually people who served in the military. But this is for people who served in the military. It's Veterans Day. And then Friday, tomorrow, it's the Marine Corps anniversary. So just, hide your women and children and don't go to the bars. Yeah. Don't actually, no, Paul, have crayons so you can just throw crayons everywhere, and then you'll never be attacked.
They'll crawl right out of the bushes. I guarantee it. They will come around like homeless bums, and they'll just eat all the crayons you have.
All my fellow Americans who are Marines, God bless you guys. We love you. We're only joking about the crayons. So, actually, not really joking too much. Especially you, Chip. You know who I'm talking to. But Jeremy, on that note, though, and Paul. So as we're kind of getting used to the new format, I just wanted to throw that out there, kind of tied in a little bit to what's coming up this weekend, but also more importantly, what it means to be all in and what we're trying to do. Anyway, sorry, you guys said things that got me a little fired up. Now, Jeremy, you still got the second part of your original comment you want to make.
And I want to hear what you and Paul have to say. You and I talked about this briefly, but I have a prediction. And so if anybody's been kind of following the newsreel or the feeds as of late, you'll find that there's a growing number of very discontented individuals within the Ukrainian government right now. And at first I thought it was kind of a fluke, and I was like, all right, one guy's kind of pissed off. I get that, things aren't necessarily working out the way that they had anticipated. But then I saw another one, and I saw another one, and then some of these guys literally low key went out of their way, unbeknownst to some others, to give information to the Times. I think it was the Times. And basically, the general consensus is many in the Ukrainian government supposedly think that Zelensky is not only delusional, but completely freaking insane now. There was an article that was written, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Mark. I don't know if you had seen the article, but basically one of the government officials gave an interview and was like, this man is delusional. He's reckless. He is out of his mind. He is completely unstable. And he basically, the way he delivered it coincides with many others, which is, we are saying this because we're mildly concerned. When I say mildly, they're concerned, but at the same time, there's rumblings that hey, you might want to be aware that a potential coup could happen any day now. And there was a couple people from within the administration that, while they didn't say it outright, definitely are alluding to there needs to be a change taking place here, because we're not doing well.
So here, I'm just going to rein this in because this is what we're going to have to work on. Jeremy just opened up a big can of worms. This is why we've had 3 hour, 4 hour long podcasts, because we could sit and talk about that right now.
Yeah.
How about suffice it to say, let's come over to Paul, and then, because this was your part too, but let's come over to Paul for some closing comments, and then back to you. But to your point about Ukraine, Jeremy, I mean, for everybody watching and listening, again, you are part of the resistance. Think about this. Why does everybody support? Why are all these weird politicians, these politicians, well, I guess they're all weird, supporting a guy who just came out and said, yeah, we can't have elections? America, don't
for the second time.
Yep, don't be fooled by this bullshit. We've had elections whenever elections were up when it was time for elections, no matter what. We've been in plenty of wars, and we've always had elections. War has never shut down and prevented our country from holding elections. So don't let this guy, this clown actor over, in Ukraine, who's been grifting off all of our fucking billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars, and don't allow American politicians to use that grift to say, well, we've got to suspend the elections 2024 because we're at war with China, or the war in Ukraine and Russia, blah, 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 bullshit, blah, blah, bullshit. So in the grander scheme of all in, boys and girls, I'm not making this. You might think I'm crazy, but go and look, do your own research. I'm only repeating the things that I've seen and read from mainstream media, not alt media, mainstream media. They're already getting it prepped for no elections, or, again, and to Paul's point, mail-in ballots. Dude, that's the worst thing that could. How is a constitutional republic? How could anyone argue with, like, no, you've got to show up in person, you got to have an ID? There's no argument there, dude. You can't go cash a check or go buy beer without an ID. Like, what makes you think you should be able to vote? Like, I can't go buy a gun. Hey, because I already know somebody say, well, it's my constitutional right. Well, it's also my constitutional right to be armed and defend myself. I can't go do any of that shit without an ID, motherfuckers. So fuck you, and fuck you. We should all vote, and everybody should have to have an ID. Sorry, I'm getting fired up. I think this is going to be a fun way forward. I hope everybody kind of likes it. I'm going to be a little bit more of that right there. Like, I just don't give, I've got zero fucks to give anymore. Our country is on the brink of disaster. We're about to lose. We are about to lose, boys and girls.
And we have people in our government that think that we can actually fight a 2 to 3 front war too, which I think is.
Oh my God, Janet Yellen.
What a national treasure of disaster, isn't she?
Holy shit. All right, keeping it short. I digress. I sucked us down there for a couple seconds.
My prediction is I think at some point Zelensky's going to be ousted, simply because of the fact that the mainstream media has turned on him. The Western countries are turning on him.
Yeah.
And his own people, even some
his own people who never were for him.
Well, and I was just going to say, like, he fell into that honeypot scheme, which the United States likes to do with people. Like, we'll be here forever.
Hey, how about this? How about the simple fact that we can't have a conversation that we're now starting to see reports that his wife is supposedly involved in some human trafficking ring. Are you seeing this stuff? So the cracks.
I haven't seen that one. No.
The cracks are starting to form.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The cracks are there. Like, information that, just like we should all have seen the Nashville Manifesto, it's starting to get out there. And so I personally, on that note, think that also indicates that the next, 6 to 18 months are going to be batshit crazy. But because truth is going to be coming out just as much as evil is going to be trying to suppress it. All right, we're going to kind of keep this short. Again, boys, I wanted to try to do this an hour and a half. I think we can still make an hour and a half. Let's bring it over to Paul for his final. Paul's been looking over there he's been like, would these guys ever shut up?
No, look, I'm here to contribute. So I have a lot to say about Zelensky, but I'm going to pass, and I'm just going to say the well is dry, buddy. That's your problem. So, and as far as being able to fight on multiple wars, look at all the stuff we left in Afghanistan. That's ridiculous. We should be using that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Final thing. All in.
Yeah, hang on. I just got to throw this out there before you go any final thing.
Okay.
You're absolutely right about Afghanistan. With Veterans Day coming up around the corner, Dude, how fucking embarrassing. Matter of fact, I really wish you wouldn't have brought up Afghanistan because it is Veterans Day on Saturday. Holy, just how tragic that whole thing is. God damn it. All right, go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So back to all in. So why am I all in? Well, we discussed that earlier. So what am I all in with? So I'm all in on food sources. I'm all in on power and alternate sources of power in the event that anything happens, whether it's natural or man-made. So, at this point in time, with our porous border at the bottom, and we know that there are people coming in, and I can't believe, and this goes back to the Republican Party not living up to what they should do. They know who is coming into this country. They don't care. And Republicans call them out on it. And they, I don't care, but I don't know. No. We need to know. We need to shut that border down because we know we have cells throughout the FBI admitted that, although they still believe white supremacy is the worst thing going on. Although I never met a white supremacist, so I don't know. Oh wait, I listened to Howard Stern back in the 90s. Daniel Carver was a white supremacist. I don't know if he was joking or not. And I also know Robert Byrd, who I didn't know. Oh yeah, Barack Obama did a eulogy for him after he died, and he was with some kind of grand dragon or something. The Democratic Party and okay, all right, I went off the rails there. The point is, I'm in for food and power right now, and personal safety. Okay, make sure you protect yourself. Honestly, you can Jack Black Scout. Listen to him. He's right. Always be prepared. I've been in areas where there were no crimes, that all of a sudden somebody gets carjacked, and just don't let it happen to you. Okay. Always be prepared that way. So I'm all in because I'm afraid that I know people that have been victims. I know that if some people I know that will not be able to feed themselves, if a natural event occurs over the winter, takes out power for 2 weeks, I know a lot of people that are going to be coming to me for food, and I may not have it. So you need to prepare and make sure that you're all in and you prepare for this. Just get a couple every week. Go to Walmart, get some generic canned food and put it in your pantry or cabinet, whatever you want to do. Just have something to feed yourself. Cover yourself for a month or two. Things that can last for years, and then eat them. Don't let them last there forever. They don't last forever. Eat them, a few weeks later, or I'm sorry, a year or two later before they expire. And the expiration date's not a thing. But if okay, so
no. Just sorry to interrupt you. Here's what I think why you're kind of doing what you're doing is because you realize this is a class. I actually think we should do that as a separate podcast because I hear what's going on in your brain. You're already okay, I'm telling people to buy food, but okay, then you should have a recycling system. This is what I'm eating now. Then the new stuff goes to the end. The old stuff comes to the front. I think we should do that as another podcast as part of the all in to what you're saying, Paul. I mean, whether it's us throwing ourselves under the bus, hey, here's how I'm doing it. I might be doing it wrong. I might be doing it right for me or whatever, but I think we should kind of consider that, honestly.
Yeah, I know I'm doing it wrong, and I'm trying to fix it. So I hope that everyone else can know that, just still try. Those things are key: food, power, and safety.
Well, and what is safety?
So making sure that if somebody does come to your property trying to steal your food or your shelter, that you can defend yourself. That's a last-ditch effort. You never want to be there, right? But
so I'm not trying to throw you under. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but see that little hesitation as you start thinking about that. So again, I think that's what we need to start doing too. I can't sit there. There's no one solution that works for everybody. And what works for you, Paul, in your environment might not work if it was me or Jeremy in your same environment, right? Because everybody's different. We're just all different, but there's still some ways that we can look at these problems. And I love what just happened right there, because this Jeremy and I, when we were talking about this is what we want to do. We actually want to start exposing ourselves and throwing and exposing some of our normal conversations. Jeremy and his family are trying to get the hell out of Minnesota next summer. I'm trying to get out of Minnesota. That means Centerline Systems trying to get out of Minnesota. That means Cindy, my lead sewer. So there's people. We're real human beings. We're trying to get out of the state. So to Paul's point, whether it's I'm bugging in, I'm bugging out, how am I doing things? I think that's some stuff that we as a podcast, Jeremy and I, really wanted to start being a little bit more open about, because somebody might be better at something and maybe point out where we're doing something wrong, or maybe somebody can learn from how we're assessing it or looking at things. And it's the same with you, Paul, and it's the same with Patrick, and it's the same with Steven. I think everybody's got a slightly different story and set of experiences and skill sets that they bring to the table. Hell, I'm not going to lie. If I was a multimillionaire, I would be flying. I would have a shit ton of property. I'd fly all of you guys into it, and here'd be your 20 or 40, and we'd all be living on a couple 100 acres, and then I wouldn't be scared about anything. Honestly, I'd be like, the only thing I'd be worried about then would be, I don't know what. I wouldn't be worried about an alien invasion. I'd be like, bring that shit on. Zombies? Oh, hell yeah. I guess there'd be nuclear fallout. That'd be the only thing I'd be worried about, because, that's the shit you really can't fight back against, if that makes any sense. But Jeremy, I see you with your glow stick. We're going to probably go just a little bit longer, but I want you to chime in on that thought right there, because Paul made me think of it. So let's come to you as well.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to kind of hit on what Paul brought up too, like what my all-in looks like. It basically can be summarized in kind of what I'm doing already, which is, one, physical fitness. Like, dude, like I know I harp on it a lot, but physical fitness is something that people have to get invested in. Like, we live in this world to where, like, oh, I just want people to accept me for myself. Well, I would argue that, that there is a realm in which people allow themselves to get so degraded, and as such, there's this idea that you're okay with yourself. But as somebody who was in a position of detriment, being overweight at a time, I didn't feel good. I mentally wasn't as good, emotionally wasn't as good, like there's a lot of caveats that come with not being healthy, not being fit. When you carry around a lot more weight or too little weight than your body realistically can handle, there's issues there. So look, whether people want to admit it or not, like there's a lot of things surrounding what you eat, your physical ability, your physical preparedness. It's either going to be a make or break thing. I'm not saying you have to go out and march 20 miles. That's not my point. My point is if it could be just something as basic as, your kids riding their bike down the road and you see them enter, an area of traffic, like, do you have the ability to sprint down the road to save your kid? Like, and people might say, like, well, that's, it's one of those situations that I've never experienced. The key word is never experienced. It's not will never experience. We often have this idea that it's, it can't happen to me. Well, it can't happen to me or won't happen to me. It could be a neighbor thing. Well, guess what? You're somebody's neighbor, and they're saying the same thing about themselves, and you're that person. Outside of physical fitness, you got to get out and train with stuff. I've harped on this a lot too, but you gotta be able to put in what you can, where you can, whether it's dry fire or just learning how to take and scrape two sticks together to see if you can make a fire. Another big thing that I've gotten into, which I think is good.
No, I'm just going to stop you right there. Let's save that for later, because the end state here is that we as a group, we're going to start talking and having more of our podcast, again, part 1, part 2, where we're going to start doing some of this stuff. And some of this will be a little bit maybe classroom based. So we don't need to get into all the details of that right now, but suffice it to say, Jeremy, you're absolutely right, though. This is what
I was just going to say. People should pick up a book, read a book. Seriously. Like I would highly encourage people, like, I don't care if it's even fiction at this point, like our ability to comprehend words is piss poor. I don't remember. Yeah, I just saw something a week ago or 2 weeks ago to where the average student in the United States, like the testing, the scores for testing, don't get me wrong, like I don't even think the tests are that good. I think they're a crock of crap, if you ask me. But when you're testing scores and that average there is so low that even crappy tests tell you you're stupid, like what does that indicate to you? Like, dude, pick up a book. And I'm going through this book right now. I'm actually getting Mark on the hype train for this. So hopefully he'll be able to give me feedback. But that's just an example of a book, right? Like there's 3 books. What you get from that is you have to look at words. And as you're going through the book, I do it all the time. How do I pronounce that word? Okay, we'll take a second from your book, learn how to pronounce the word. Dude, that reading's it's a critical skill. Like if you don't learn how to read, how do you know what stop means or caution or go? Like
all right. Hey, slow down. I'm just gonna slow you down because I want to try to keep us on our objective. Our objective was an hour to hour and a half. We're already at an hour and a half, but we'll have to bring this up again later because Jeremy, whether you are doing it intentionally or not, but language is being distorted. So we don't have what you're trying, because we don't have what you're trying to say, which is what we need to have as a society, right? So I agree with you. I know people say you guys always agree with each other. Well, because Jeremy hasn't been wrong so far.
Look, I don't have much time in a day, but I still have like 10 or 15 minutes to open a book and read some words. Like, dude,
wow.
If you have
time, just let's hold that for one of our next conversations, because I
was just going to say
things that I want to say.
If you have the time to open up Twitter and read something on Twitter, you can open up.
Don't do it. You're already opening up a can of worms. Let's come. See, Paul's laughing too. I see Paul. Paul knows what you're talking about. All right, let's come over to Paul, and then let's bring it back over to you, Jeremy, for the outro. Let's bring Paul.
No, I'll be real quick. I agree with a lot of what Jeremy said. I have a lot of feedback that we could do in a part 2 of this. So I'm going to reserve all my opinions for that. But there's a lot of points that I could make, let's say, that are age specific. People like me compared to him. He's in a lot better shape. When I was his age, I could do more things. One thing I'll tell you, though, is there was an incident that my son said, "Oh, I'm faster than you," and I was in my early 30s, right? And I didn't stretch. Damn it, if I didn't blow a hammy out and lost that race. So, and I know I'm faster, and he will never, ever let me hear the end of that. But so that has nothing to do, but it's partially. When you get older, you have to stretch. So I can add to Jeremy's thing there, but I'll leave it at that. I think it's kind of a little funny note at that.
All right, there. I actually saw that I was muted. I see. I love that because older, And this will be some of the things that we start talking about in the podcast going forward, or it'll be like a spice that we put into every dish, the dish being the podcast and physical fitness. I mean, Paul's absolutely right. Jeremy's absolutely right. And I'll be one of the first people to say it too. Like, I think I was probably my strongest when I was in my late 30s, honestly, late 30s and early 40s. Who I was as a person in my late 30s would have beat the living the piss out of my early 20s, late teens. When you think you're tough, dude, you don't even know who you've yet to become or who you blossom into. But to Paul's point, Paul probably would have beat the living crap out of his kid in that race if he would have stretched out, because that's the thing. Yeah, seriously.
I lost.
You got to stretch, dude. You got to stretch it out. Hey, my last closing comment here, besides, you got to stretch, especially when you get older, is this kind of going into the whole, all in, and this is what we have to do. And this is what we're going to start doing a little bit more with the podcast. So, hey, thanks to everybody who watched and stayed with us, to this point in the podcast. We'll do better. We'll get better as we start doing more of these, but we're going to keep these to an hour and a half. But my final comment on this, for both Paul and Redbeard and for Steven and Patrick and anyone else who joins us, George and Blake in the future. So my thing right here is like an article. I'm going to start putting links to some articles and some news sites, alt media. So Jeremy talked about, mainstream media and alt media. I'm going to start putting some links there. So one link is to a thing I read called Zero Hedge. And Zero Hedge is kind of like it pulls from different articles, but they tell you, hey, we pull articles from this news source and this news source and da-da-da-da. And they put a lot of good stuff together. And one of the articles I really like here is this is from the end of October. In the war on truth, it is time to become heroes. And so I printed that out, and it's a great article, because that's what we're trying to do here. In the war on truth, there is a war on truth. Dude, people have been saying this for oh, that's so much bullshit. There's no media. Dude, everything they say they're not doing, it's exactly what they are doing. And it's irrefutable at this point in time. And if you don't see it, then I feel sorry for you. But all the shit they say that they're not doing or they blame on somebody else, it's exactly what they're doing. Evil. And I don't care. You can call it Democrat. You can call it. I don't care what you call it. I just call it. We are in that struggle right now. We are in that fight for good versus for the soul of our soul as humans, the soul of humanity, the soul of our country, however you want to phrase it. And I'm all in on trying to defend that and protect it.
Yep.
Even if it means that, I'm probably never going to. Jeremy knows what I'm about to say here, and this is where I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to turn it over to him for actually, I'll bring it to Paul for his final comments, and then Jeremy's final, and then the outro. But here's the thing that anybody who's been talking to me on, inner circle stuff, my comment is, I think if you're like my age, I'm in my mid 50s, Paul's close, Jeremy's a little bit younger, but for those of us, who are in this age group, the best that we're ever going to get again in our lives is probably Obama era economics. And if you were alive during that era, you know how much it sucked. But that's a million times better than where it is right now. And it was a shitty time for Americans economically. But I think that's about the best we're ever going to get again in my lifetime. I don't think I'm going to see my military retirement. I don't think I'm going to see my Social Security. I don't think I'm going to see anything from the CIA. I think I'll be lucky if I can scrape together enough money to get 10 acres of land, and I can have a small house and a greenhouse so I can grow my own vegetables, a little garden. So, but that doesn't mean I'm out of the fight. I got to stay in the fight in order for that age group of 18 to 25-year-olds to wake the fuck up and take our country back and take back freedom and the plight of humanity. That's my final comments for the All In. This is what we're about to do going forward podcast. Let's come over to Paul for his final comments, and then Jeremy will come to you for final comments and outro.
Mm-hmm.
Paul.
Okay, I'll be brief. You mentioned something about Social Security. I always thought that I would not receive Social Security because we would just we've already spent it, right? And it's a Ponzi scheme, and it's not going to work out at this point. And why I'm all in? I'm concerned that it might be because of an economic collapse. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's just because we run out of money that I don't get it. And that's I'll leave it at that for future discussion.
That's a great point. I mean, yeah, I was just trying to wrap it up on just throwing out some bullet comments, but you're absolutely right. And this is why we do 4-hour podcasts in the past, because we could sit and talk about, the impending economic collapse. That money is not there anymore. If you're the age of Paul and I are really close in age, there's no doubt in my mind, like I'm not going to probably see any of my retirement or my Social Security money. I just don't think it's going to happen. Paul, I don't want to speak for you. What do you think, sir?
I agree with you 100%.
All right. Well, then on that note, Paul, any last little things to add? Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Redbeard.
Get Redbeard.
Okay, Redbeard. So, hey, sir, you've got final comments and outro. So don't think you're rushed. You got all the time you need, sir.
Yeah. So I just want to point out, like, the reason I harp, and I am going to go back to it, but the reason I harp on physical fitness is because if you start younger, so like physical fitness was a thing, like, I'm old enough to remember when we had mandatory fitness tests in school. Okay. Very rarely, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but very rarely when I was going to school was there ever a fat person in school. It's not saying it didn't happen, but there was a standard. And I'm not talking about necessarily the presidential fitness test. Like, we actually had weightlifting classes. We had, we had to qualify each year with a run and crunches or sit-ups, depending on what the teacher felt was appropriate. You had to do push-ups. You had to do squats. You had to do several things to show that you were physically fit. If you didn't participate, well, you got a failing score. It's because you're not wanting to participate. Do I feel like you should have to do it? No, but at the same time, I think it should be strongly encouraged to kids. Look, like, your physical fitness and your health is going to take you far or as not far as you want to go. We should not be propagating this thought process, if you will, of it's okay to just eat without conscience. It's okay to just do nothing and to have no physical activity and to do, like, what we have in the United States right now with obesity and being overweight is we literally have people that are addicts and that have serious issues with being able to get under control not only their lifestyle, but their physical, mental, and emotional health, which very much, if your body is not well, your mind is not well. If your mind is not well, your body gets worse. And just a point of personal
Personal
not
privilege.
necessarily I wouldn't even say point of personal privilege, but just personal perceptive experience, if you will.
Personal pride, personal experience.
Yeah.
Something like that.
My father is, at this current year, my father is 63. He goes to the gym every day, every single day. Every day in the morning. You know what drives him to the gym every single day? He is afraid of dying a crippled, decrepit old man. He wants to be in the best shape of his life so that when he goes to die, he's going to die in the best way possible. He knows death is coming. He just wants to do it in the best way possible. He doesn't want to go out in a way that's going to be painful, agonizing, or otherwise. My dad gets there.
So let's save that for another conversation. So bring that back into bring it back in.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but on one more note though, my grandfather, well into his 80s, was still bench pressing, walking several miles, still lifting weights, you know, on a regular weekly basis, 3 to 4 times a week. Like, longevity occurs when you take care of your body. It's undeniable. People who want to deny that, look, I can't do nothing for you, but I'm just saying it is absolutely important.
So, hey, just as as kind of an argument against what you're saying, but also to what you're saying. So I have this weird feeling like I'm about to get this hip surgery. Hopefully it really helps. Dude, I can't tell you how much I'm grasping at the idea that I'm about to be able to start exercising for the first time in like 3 to 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you're absolutely, I think you're right. But I think it's a very nuanced conversation. And we, you know, so let's hold that for later. But I just want to chime in because as a human being, and maybe I'm putting all my eggs in one basket, but I'm just like, oh, I can't wait for this fucking surgery. I just can't wait where I can actually start running. I can start punching. I can start doing, I can start doing things again, you know, like, so it's like a man, you know, like drowning in water with a chance to get oxygen. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but I also wanted to slow you down because let's not get too deep into it because you know, let's just wrap this up.
But the general overall point is like, dude. I mean, the general overall point too is like, look, like there's a lot of things that people bring up that should not deter you from being able to do what you know you should be doing. There's guys without legs. There's elderly people. There's people that are going and working out. Like, there's always an opportunity to further yourself, and that's my point. You're just going to be like, if a guy without legs is out pulling you on pull-ups, dude, I don't know what to tell you. And there's several Olympians without legs that can do more pull-ups than you. So the point is they have overcome their you know, their
all right. Come on, wrap this up. Let's just start getting better at this. Dude, we could sit and talk for another 2 hours about, like, you know, the value of pull-ups are great. You don't have to go to a gym. I mean, like, it's actually, I'm not even gonna lie. So I'm sidebarring this now. I'm about to order a little bullshit pull-up bar that I can put in one of my doorways so I can start doing pull-ups as I'm walking to the bathroom or walking back. Every time I walk through that doorway, I do 3 or 5, you know, until I can start, you know, increasing my reps. You're absolutely right, Jeremy. You just wanted to go down.
A different
story. Actually, I think it's your glow stick thing. You just want to start raving.
Honestly, like, between this and just I guess don't make excuses. You know, like, life sucks.
Yeah,
we all have shitty times. Like, the thing that takes you through the shittiest times is when you can accomplish something. So, that being said.
Well, hang on. No. Don't do your outro. Don't do your outro. I mean, like, you brought up a great point. I mean, I would actually argue that it's the shittiest times, those shittiest moments, those shitty moments in life. Those are the ones that we're supposed to experience because those are the ones that teach us the most. And we learn from those things.
The most valuable day at the gym is the days that I never wanted to go.
Paul, before we give Jeremy the outro, what do you got, sir?
I would just say combine what Jeremy said with diet. Your diet,
100%.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing the best I can with what I have. You know, kettlebells, that kind of stuff. I'm no longer at the point where I'm going to a gym. I've got too many injuries, and you know, but you know, I try and exercise the best I can. But diet,
and you're doing what you need to do.
Yep, making sure I can hike that mountain.
Well, and right. So let's save this for the next time, because let's talk about this. Like, you know, because it isn't just it is what you eat. It's your physical activity. It's how you're expending calories. It's also about like we could make simple arguments, but like, you know, if you're going to do some things, like, you know, you don't have time to do everything unless you are, you know, independently wealthy and you can spend your whole day training. So what are the little things that you can throw into your life? So Jeremy, I like this. It's kind of a life hack thing. You know, like, I'm looking at my SIRT pistol right over there. I'm looking at where the pull-up bar, like, hey, the SIRT pistol could always be on the table. And every time I walk by the table, I'm drawing it. You know, I put it on, I draw it from holster, I press, and you know, see, I think this is what we need to start doing when This is
Yeah.
where it needs to be. All in means figuring out how you can even when you aren't the person who has the time or the money to go in, but you can still train yourself every fucking day. And I'm looking, I've got a Boken. You guys can't see, but it's right there. I need to do the same thing. Like every time I walk past this, it's got to be a draw stroke, a cut stroke, a block, whatever it is. This is something that we all can do and we all should incorporate into our lives because I don't know about you guys, but shit ain't going to get any easier anytime soon. It's about to get really hard here, in my opinion. So,
So,
all right, Paul, how you doing? You tapping out?
No, I'm good. Am I nutting off?
No, I'm just.
Yeah, we're ready for Redbeard to close it out.
All right.
So, Redbeard, close.
Look, on that note, thank you, everybody.
Oh, hang on. Do you have any last comments on that before you do the outro?
Nothing. No, nothing that's not going to result in a rabbit hole. So I'm just going to go with the outro.
Well, do you want to do a slight rabbit hole, but more importantly, not a rabbit hole, but like a sneak preview about like talking about some of the, I kind of want you to do this before you go out. Like the things that would, especially with Patrick talking about the physical fitness and the hands-on training. Do you want to at least allude to that a little bit before we go?
So I know one thing that we've been talking about, at least as far as an episode, and this is something we talked about with Steven, is what is important. And I do feel that that's going to factor into that particular episode because what is important, it's, there's a lot that goes into that. It's a very, there's a lot of areas that are important, but each of those areas is different to each person in a different way. When it comes down to training, when it comes down to physical ability, when it comes down to, even just something like fighting, it all takes repetition. It all takes time. You don't, here's an analogy I'll leave everybody with. You don't walk in somewhere, see the 100-pound dumbbell and expect to lift it the first time, that your very first day in a gym. Can somebody do it? Absolutely they can. Those people are absolute fucking anomalies. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying like that person's got a lot going for them genetically, and I think that's great. But we all have a starting point, whether that's fitness, whether that's fighting, whether that's something like cooking. Okay. We all have to start and learn fundamentals, and then we can build ourselves up to become more adept at these things. When it comes down to fitness and hand to hand, like those two things very much marry together. The stronger you are, in many ways, the more capable you can be. It doesn't determine everything, but the more capable and formidable you can be. I guarantee you a guy that has a really good grip strength is probably going to do a little bit better in a fight. Not all the time, but sometimes that can be the case. If you have a guy that weighs more, they very much do have an advantage. There's a lot of nuance to that particular discussion, which I don't want to rabbit hole too much, but these are certain things that we will cover. As pertaining to that particular episode that I mentioned, what is important, I think that's somewhat going to be involved in that, but we may also have a different episode that's going to encompass that, the fighting and the fitness conversation even more. So
you nailed it, sir. I think that covered what I was hoping you would cover, because that's part of what we're doing in the future. So yeah, Paul, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm good. Wait until the next episode. We can pick up where we left off. Yeah.
All right. Well then,
all right.
Then Redbeard, before you take us out, I just want to remind everybody that that don't believe the fantasy that you have two political parties. You got to start. We all need to wake up. Everybody needs to go all in. We need to start changing the stuff, and so we actually can have a couple different political parties. But look around you. Everybody was laughing about this years ago, but it's so obvious that the uniparty exists right now. And you can sit there and say, oh, Mark is a conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat. Really? I'll just look at you and say, look at yourself in the mirror. you're lying to yourself. I mean, it's
Yep.
it's evident everywhere, and that's what we're going to start doing going forward. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's podcast. It was a little bit longer than what we're going to do in the future. We're trying to figure this out. I mean,
Mhm.
I rambled, Jeremy rambled, Paul didn't ramble. Paul was actually just sitting there politely waiting to actually have the opportunity to make a comment. It's really more Jeremy and myself, maybe more me, but we're going to get better. We will get this down to 1 hour, 60 to 90 minutes per podcast. That is our goal going forward tonight.
Yep.
First night, a little bit long, but that's okay. It was still a good podcast. I
Yep.
loved it. So, boys, anything? Otherwise, Jeremy's taking us out. Paul? That's me. You're pointing at me, sir.
Oh, yep.
Not in my screen.
Oh, on my screen? Yeah, there you go. Now, there you go. There you go. There you go. See, it's not that fucking easy. There you go. All right. All right, Redbeard, let's bring it over to you. Take us out, sir.
No, yeah, just want to thank Paul for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank every guest that we have. Again, like I told Paul in the very beginning, this is becoming very much more than just me and Mark. We conceptualized the idea, we kind of brought it to fruition, but really it's becoming more about the people that we have on here, and also the people that tune in, that listen to us ramble and talk a bunch of nonsense out of our behinds every so often.
Hey, my middle name starts with an R, and I think it is now Ramble. But that's not what my middle name is. But I'm willing to take it. Mark Ramble Lina. That's my name right now.
So I just really, really appreciate everybody coming out here to watch us. We really do appreciate it.
Right.
It comes back to you guys. So on that note, look, the flame of liberty.
Before you say it, see, I already just got chills coming up my spine. I'm here to tell you, no matter how we tweak what we're doing going forward, the outro, your comments, that's gonna stay there. I love, dude. We got to get 10th Amendment people. I just love. I love the outro. I loved it. Matter of fact, we could get rid of the intro to make sure we have time for the outro. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead, dude. I seriously, every time you do it, I get little goosebumps. I love it so much.
So naturally, with the Betsy Ross here,
that might have nothing to do with it, but whatever.
The flame of liberty shall not and will not ever be extinguished so long as there are good people that are willing to support and defend it. And that all starts with each and every single one of you. As Mark puts out there, you guys really are the resistance. You are the people that makes the difference. And look, if we lost everything tomorrow, liberty still burns in each and every person's heart. And we are the people that will foster and cultivate that. So that's all I got. That's the ending I'm going to leave you with. That's where we're going to keep her, boys.
All right. I love the outro. Paul.
No, I'm good.
All right, then everybody, that's the outro for episode 33. We will see you again next week, and we'll get better at this new format. But as Redbeard just said, hey, God, yeah, there it is, right there. Do it again with your little zoomy stick. I love it. All right, everybody, be good. Woo! And here we go.